We're on the brink of losing the global war against climate change, but a delicate agreement from COP30 might just keep the flames of hope alive. Let's dive into why this summit in Belém, Brazil, was both a triumph and a letdown. Imagine this: after intense debates at the 30th Conference of the Parties, that's COP30 for short, the United Nations' big annual climate gathering, the world hasn't fully turned the page on fossil fuels, despite hopes in the heart of the Amazon rainforest to do so. Led by countries like Saudi Arabia, some nations dug in their heels, blocking plans to end the era of coal, oil, and gas. And right there in the rainforest, a major goal, to map out a path to stop deforestation, wasn't fully met, leaving vast areas of vital jungle vulnerable to chainsaws and fires. But here's where it gets controversial. In a time filled with rising nationalism, ongoing conflicts, and widespread skepticism, these talks didn't fall apart as many feared. Instead, international cooperation held on by a thread, proving that even in turbulent waters, unity can prevail. Simon Steele, the head of the UN's climate efforts, summed it up best in Belém. He acknowledged the tough blows from denialism, divisions, and political gamesmanship that have rocked global teamwork this year. Yet, he celebrated that climate cooperation is alive and kicking, a subtle nod to the United States, which, under President Donald Trump, skipped sending representatives entirely. Trump has famously dismissed climate change as a hoax or a scam, personifying the resistance to urgent action on rising global temperatures. "I'm not claiming victory in the climate battle," Steele emphasized, "but we're still fighting back, choosing togetherness, science, and smart economic decisions." He highlighted a key part of the COP30 pact, the unstoppable shift toward reducing greenhouse gases, those heat-trapping pollutants from human activities, and building resilience against climate impacts. This, he argued, sends a powerful message to markets and politicians alike that can't be brushed off. And this is the part most people miss: even as one superpower pulled back, 194 nations stood united, weathering the storm like sturdy rocks. The summit kicked off over 2 weeks ago with a leaders' meeting, where Brazil's hosts radiated optimism about wrapping up on schedule. But as days turned into nights of heated discussions, visible cracks appeared between the negotiating parties, and things nearly unraveled by Friday. Thanks to all-night talks and mutual concessions, a deal emerged on Saturday, tackling a wide array of topics. These included boosting adaptation funding threefold to shield communities from extreme weather, like floods, droughts, or hurricanes, and establishing a just transition mechanism, a fund to help countries shift away from polluting industries without leaving workers behind. For beginners, think of adaptation funding as money to build stronger homes, improve early warning systems, or plant more trees to protect against climate disasters. The agreement also formally recognized the rights of Indigenous peoples and their traditional knowledge as essential tools for climate solutions. However, bold plans to outline timelines for ditching fossil fuels and halting deforestation were set aside, delegated to informal groups of willing countries outside the UN framework. Surprisingly, the role of food systems, such as cattle ranching on newly cleared Amazon land, was barely touched upon, despite its huge contribution to emissions. Critics saw the deal as merely a small step forward, not the giant leap needed against a worsening crisis. Jasper Inventor from Greenpeace International called it out: COP30 began with high hopes but fizzled out disappointingly. This should have been the time to switch from talk to real action, and it didn't. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres agreed that while some ground was gained, securing consensus is tougher in divided times. "The divide between our current reality and what science tells us we need is alarmingly big," he warned. EU Environment Commissioner Wop Hoekstra expressed cautious relief on social media, noting the EU's firm stance for stronger climate goals, even if internal tensions tested that unity. Experts like Anna Aberg from Chatham House saw value in simply avoiding a collapse, which would have dealt a harsh blow to global cooperation after a year of challenges. "Reaching any deal in Belém is a win, even if ambition fell short for many," she said. Frustrations ran deep, though. Adaptation funds, while tripled, won't hit targets until 2035, far too late for frontline communities. Mamadou Touré from Practical Action in Senegal stressed, "Adaptation thrives on steady, reliable support. Vulnerable people can't plan around vague promises." Likewise, despite Brazil branding COP30 the Indigenous COP and acknowledging Indigenous rights in the text, involvement remained limited. Emile Gualinga, representing the Quechua peoples of Sarayaku in Ecuador, pointed out, even called an Indigenous summit, we're still sidelined from key talks. And here's another controversial twist, the final document avoided naming fossil fuels outright. Climate scientist James Dyke from the University of Exeter slammed it as a disgraceful failure driven by selfish agendas and political maneuvering. Yet, in a world where past COPs have unfolded in nations with strongman leaders, Belém saw vibrant protests return. Tens of thousands marched mid-summit, with indigenous groups and activists voicing dissent in what was otherwise a bland conference hall. As indigenous demos energized the venue and over 70,000 hit the streets, the energy has been the strongest I've seen in ages, said Jamie Henn from Fossil Free Media. Looking ahead, experts like Professor Michael Grubb from University College London urged a shift, fixating on phasing out fossils hits roadblocks, so let's balance it with the upsides, like the massive economic opportunities in renewable energy and electrification, helping nations worldwide thrive. In the end, COP30 reminds us that progress on climate change is a marathon, not a sprint. But here's the big question, is clinging to fragile unity enough, or do we need bolder, less consensus-driven moves? What do you think? Should nations like Saudi Arabia be pressured to compromise more, or does this deal prove multilateralism is still our best shot? Share your take in the comments, I'd love to hear your side.